The silly moments, the proud moments, even the hard moments. They're why Wellmark Blue Cross and Blue Shield is committed to making healthcare better, more affordable, with more choices for care, and peace of mind through it all. Because Blue is here for you.
Welcome to the Made in Iowa podcast presented by Wellmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Today, we welcome Riana LeJeune into the studio, and she is reinventing the amazing skilled trade of upholstering and using technology to help continue that legacy. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. I am in the studio today with Riana LeJeune, who is bringing a respect and an honor to an industry that I feel like has been forgotten. Riana is with a company called Reinventing, which she created 13 years ago. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
You upholster furniture.
Correct. Along with many other things.
Along with many other things. That has led to many adjacent endeavors that you've created. Talk about just the skill of upholstery and the place that it has in today's society.
Well, I got my start in 2013, and there are actually no schools for upholstery in Iowa. So I am self-taught, and when I couldn't learn locally, I sought out mentors around the country. And it's not a quick process to learn, because as a custom upholsterer, you have to be able to work on any piece that's ever been made. So there is no ballpark in custom upholstery because it's too big. So we have to see what we are working on. And then, picking from thousands of fabrics that exist, I have to make a two-dimensional fabric look good on a three-dimensional surface. So there are a lot of systems, but also a lot of variety that keep our brains interested.
And not only have you had to train yourself, you've had to train others. You had a substantial growth spurt during the supply chain issues that COVID created. Talk about that growth spurt and how you were able to meet that demand for employees.
Yes. So in 2020, we were just a husband and wife team meeting demand. And then with everyone trapped in their homes during the pandemic and the supply chain interruptions, people not being able to get furniture, our phones were just ringing like crazy. And so that's really when we went into discussion about the difference between a lifestyle business and a scalable enterprise. And so, we had been comfortable just, sustaining our family. But with that demand in our community, we really recognized the need. And there were no apprenticeship programs available. And so we hired 2 additional hands. And it was a bit of creative chaos because the systems weren't in place.
Not to mention, you were in a 1,300 square foot space.
It was very
and doubled the number of bodies in it and the number of furniture in it.
Yes. And so that was, so we had 2 extra people. And then I was like, okay, we need to look at it for a larger space. And that was when Christina Moffat, who's one of my mentors, was working with Purpose Bank, which was a division of Vision Bank that specialized in female entrepreneurs. So they did make the process a little less scary for me, and we were able to do an SBA loan, so we only had to pay 10% down, and that made it a little more feasible for us to scale. So now we're in a 3,600 square foot facility over by Merle Hay Mall, and we have a showroom that has thousands of fabrics that people can feel. And then we have our workroom in the back that accommodates all of us at this point and can accommodate a few more apprentices.
Why do you think it is that in the United States, upholstery doesn't have the respect and honor that it does in European countries? Furniture is a work of art in the Netherlands, in Germany. Why do we crave cheap furniture here in the United States? What do you think caused that?
Well, I think, our industry, it's a centuries old skill trade. But in the last few decades, there was the push for the 4-year degree. So the skilled trades really suffered, the schools closed, and now we're really feeling that skill gap. And, people in modern society are used to fast and quick. And, Amazon, a click of a button and something appears on your doorstep. Whereas,
sometimes within 4 hours, which is terrifying.
Yes. But, quality custom furniture takes time and skill to create. And that doesn't happen overnight. And so there's a lot of planning involved. And with people being bombarded on their screens with new options, that's what they think of first, as opposed to sustainability and thinking about buying something that's quality once and having it last a decade.
Or multiple
more.
decades.
Yes.
And that's the point that you made to me. 60% of the furniture sold in the United States is shipped in from overseas.
Correct.
And it's that fast and cheap.
Yes.
One of the things that you mentioned to me was just the artistry in the springs in high-end furniture. Talk about how that furniture is assembled and how that impacts the longevity of the piece.
Yes. So quality furniture that's built to last is typically made from a solid wood. And then the first thing to go in is what we refer to as the suspension system. So that's going to be your springs. And historically, the 8-way spring tie is the gold standard of upholstery. And that means that each spring is tied in 8 different directions. So it works cohesively as a unit, so that if one of the twine breaks, it still is good for decades longer. Whereas in the 1960s, when we shifted to mass manufacturing, they moved to what's called a zigzag spring, and it's just attached at the front and back of the frame. And if that breaks, the furniture bottoms out, it's no longer good, and most people won't reinvest in fixing it.
It just goes out to the curb.
It just goes out to the curb.
And the way you do it now, I think one of the scariest parts for me in refurbing an antique is the elements are not inexpensive if you're going to do it right. Correct. And so visualizing that piece has always been difficult. And from what I understand, you've spent the last few years solving that problem.
Yes. So we talk about upholstery being a centuries-old skilled trade, and we've kind of been left behind in innovation. A lot of upholsterers are still doing their work with paper and pencil, no real systems in place or, standard operating procedures. And we, aren't using CAD and SketchUp like adjacent industries like interior designers and architects. So if you think about an interior designer, they put their design together. They use CAD and SketchUp so that they can visualize the room. They make mood boards, and then they do a professional presentation to their clients, and they sign off on it because they can see the outcome. Right. They're confident in their purchasing decision. Whereas most custom upholstery shops, we have a 3x3 fabric swatch that we lay on a piece of furniture and we go, imagine the outcome.
Imagine, if you will, this pattern.
Yes.
And you don't know what the repeat is.
Exactly.
You have no idea.
Yes. And so as a creative, I know what the outcome is going to be. And so I have to spend a lot of time and emails trying to explain to the client, what it's going to be. And so last year, I leveraged my knowledge and AI, and I built a visualization platform called Renewable that actually allows professionals and the general public to take an picture of their existing furniture, try real fabrics and finishes and trim details like decorative tacks or skirts and trim, and it will visualize in under 60 seconds, and they can see that outcome, the potential in that existing or new furniture, and be confident in what they're purchasing.
And it's different than going on Amazon and it's saying, visualize this in your room. It is not specific. It is not accurate. This is coming from an artist who has been doing this for 13 years. You know all of the different techniques that can be used. Like, do you want it tufted? Do you not want it tufted? And so I'm sure you've got all of those choices that you can make. Do you want a skirt on it? Do you not want a skirt on it?
I really wanted a tool that was intuitive and easy to use, that regardless of whether you were a professional or a consumer, that you could just pick it up and use it and not have to have a semester of, education on and how to operate it. So it is programmed to be an expert in all things furnishings, which is furniture, drapery, cushions, residential or commercial, interior design. And that way you don't have to spend a lot of time prompting it. It knows what to do. So you save time and energy because you upload your image, you select what you want it, and it knows what to do.
And you do this not only for heirlooms, you're doing this en masse in large applications. We are recording this at the Standard at 36th, which is up in Ankeny. And we were prepping out in the entryway, and she's looking at the bench that we're sitting on, and she said, I did these.
That's right.
So you're working with architects now in the design process.
Correct.
Using custom furniture.
Yes.
Talk about that process, especially here with Caliber. How did that process work?
So it's not unique to me. We are a valuable resource for interior designers and architects to use globally. And so typically they will contact us in phase one of their design process. Mostly we prefer that because our skills are rare and we want to make sure that we can book appropriately, our time and resources and staff to accommodate their designs in a reasonable amount of time. So sometimes, like this building, we were contacted a year in advance, and then, the frame of the building has to go up. All the other people have to do their jobs. And then finally, it comes time for install of furniture, and the carpenters have built the frames, and then we come in and we take our dimensions and we create the seating in our workroom and then install it. So it's a very collaborative effort between many professionals to execute something like this.
And you talked a little bit about the challenges that this COVID brought to the supply chain, and that your demand increased at that time. I'm hopeful that created an awareness for repurposing that wasn't there before. Do you feel like that happened?
I think that it ebb and flows, because we do as a society have a tendency to fall back into bad habits and what's convenient. But our industry historically has lacked visibility. People don't think about upholsterers until they need one. And so that's really where I am trying to get out of my shop more often and engage in things like this and in the community and, with high schools, just so that people know that it is a viable career path and that it's not a, quote unquote, dirty job, and that there's, a real sense of pride in what we do.
I want to go back to the conversation you and I had earlier about the apprenticeship. There was a gap in the market almost unilaterally here in the United States. There was no apprenticeship for upholstery.
Correct.
You went to the Department of Labor and said, we've got to build one. Mm-hmm. And in your spare time, you checked all of those boxes, filled 6,000 hours of program time, correct?
So 6,000 hours, that's the length of the apprenticeship. So someone coming through our program is 3 years, 6,000 hours of full-time on-the-job training. So that's when, when people come to me and they're like, oh, you're so busy, just hire people. Like, you literally can't just pull someone off the street and have them doing this job. And there are no, you can't say help wanted upholsterer, like there aren't any. And if there are, they are typically running their own shops or,
And they're very successful because of the demand.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the number of upholsterers here in Central Iowa. One hand.
Yeah.
5.
There's not many of us. If you think of how large the population is in just the metro area and, the suburbs, we have 5 that are meeting the
That's
need.
insane.
And typically, if you go to like the East and West Coast or North Carolina, you'll have well over 100 meeting that demand. And so there is a level of stress that comes with that because the lack of education on the industry, people want what they want when they want it. And so we have to set that expectation of, good things come to those who wait. This is how we operate our business and how we structure the projects. And everyone wants to know like when a start and stop date is. But when you're working on anything that's ever been made, you can't quantify start and stop times because of unknown variables,
Right.
Because someone might say, hey, my suspension system springs are great. And then you get it open and nothing's been changed in 100 years. And so now, the time frame has shifted because you have to address that for it to be a quality product.
Right.
And so, we just set the expectation of wait and that, it takes how long it takes for this to be excellent. And then I always encourage our clients as they wait to follow our social media. Because I don't just post before and after photos. I like to post the whole process. So, people kind of tune in like with, Fixer Upper to see this like lost cause piece of furniture be stripped down to bare bones. We evaluate the frames, we stabilize things, we do wood refinishing, then we start to build. And so that's when we put the spring systems in, we do all of our own geometry. And so I think one of the reasons that people don't always like to use previously loved furniture, as like I like to call it, is because there's a certain like ick factor. We don't know where it's been or who's been around it or if someone smoked or if they had a cat. And what I tell them is like, you don't tear down a historic house because it needs new wallpaper,
Right.
And so this furniture that we're redoing, we're taking almost everything off. Sometimes, if it comes from a home, they may not want the padding replaced or whatnot, but 99% of the time, we're taking everything off. It's bare bones, and we're redoing everything. So they are essentially getting a new chair back, because we're using these quality frames.
I want you to describe your most prized refurb that you've done.
So we are 99% commission based. So once or twice a year, I get to do, I'm just like, oh, my creative brain, I want to create something of my own. And if I make that frame and that fabric, it may or may not sell. And so, but we have examples in our showroom of that. So then people can see the quality. And so a few years ago, I found this hound's head. So it has carved hound heads on each of the arms, and it was built in 1890. And I knew what it was because we had done one in 2020 for a family, and it was an heirloom. It had been in their family that whole time. So when I saw that frame on Marketplace for $20, the person was like, come get it today or it's going to the landfill. And I was like, oh no, it's not.
I refuse.
Yes. So I went and got it, and it had definitely been in a barn for several decades, and it had the ick factor. And so we immediately stripped it all the way to frame and cleaned it. And then it kind of sat in the shop for a while as I imagined what I would want on there. And we were working on client projects. And so last year, just looking at it and the hound's heads, it really just said English library, Ralph Lauren plaid, someone sitting in it with a scotch and a pipe.
Exactly.
And so we picked an Anna Elizabeth fabric and, we upholstered it, and it is beautiful. So it has even decorative tacks on there, and it sat in our shop. Everyone loves it, but you have to find that right buyer. Well, my former spouse, Justin, who works with me still, his mom kept coming into the shop and sitting in it and then thinking about it. And, then, so just recently she did decide to purchase it and to bring it home with her. So it is going to actually be our family heirloom. So
How cool is that?
Izzy gets to sit in it on holidays and whatnot.
How about your favorite bigger scale project?
Goodness.
With an interior designer.
With an interior designer. Well, we just finished Spectrum Heights, which is across the street. That's another Caliber project. And that was very large scale, that again, over 9 months ahead of time planning. And so it was a boucle fabric, and we got to do dressmaker skirts. And it's just, it's really amazing when we can see such a large space come together. And that was one that we had to rent a moving truck to be able to, bring it all over here when it was finished, because when something's a bare frame, you can stack it and like Jenga it into your, work van. But after you've spent, 2 months upholstering everything from scratch, like it has to
Kid gloves.
have space.
Yes.
Yes. So we just finished that.
The thing I loved most about your story is here you are in the centuries old trade, using your hands, imagining what a future could look like if you applied technology to this work that would expose more people to the possibilities that exist with existing furniture. Then you were able to actually create a technology around that. And now you're promoting that technology well beyond your own operation. And it's becoming widely accepted. Talk about that process and how you were able to commercialize this technology.
So, as I mentioned, we wanted to move past the what do I call
the
it?
4-inch swatch on
Yes.
the piece of furniture.
So,
Imagine.
We've wanted innovation in our industry for a long time because it just helps businesses operate more smoothly when you can have systems and when you can have tools that, help close projects faster. So when I initially had the idea several years ago, it was just a concept in my brain. And every time I went to engineers and code writers here in Des Moines, they would quote me like $35,000 to $100,000. And at that time, I just did not have the energy to crowdfund or pitch competitions or try to get angel investors. And so I kind of would back away and
kick the can
put it
down
on the back
curb.
burner and
Yep.
go maybe someday. And so then last year with all the advancements with AI, I was like, well, maybe I can leverage my expertise in AI and build a prototype. And so I started last April. And I just started, tweaking it and telling it what I wanted it to do. And then it would evolve, and some things would work and some things wouldn't work. And then by July, I had what they call a minimum viable product. I thought it was a prototype, but when I started showing it to people, they said, this isn't just an app, Riana. This is a platform. There are so many things in here that, it's not just an app or a toy for someone to play with. This is, going to, shift a paradigm. And so, yes, it does visualizations, but it also has a project estimator in there. So professionals can price off business math and not emotion, which is a problem in our industry. Because again, paper and pencil, people thinking what could I get for a project? And it's no, what should you get for a project to not just make ends meet, but to, be profitable and thrive.
Right.
So Renewable is essentially a sales engine, for professionals, but it's also, it promotes sustainability, and it's a two-sided market. So we have launched to professionals first, and the goal with that is for them to use it in their quoting and sales processes. And to populate the directory. So the directory is very important because once we have people participating with the app, and it's not just upholsterers, so it would be woodworkers, window treatment, soft furnishing professionals, and an interior designer. So we're marketing to the whole home furnishing industry. And then once they're in the directory, we want to launch to the general public so that they can do 1 or 2 visualizations while they're out at thrift stores, estate sales, their mom's house, get excited about a project, and then be able to use that directory to connect with the professionals that can do the work.
So what is your next step?
So I've just received my first round of funding through a process here in Iowa through VentureNet and TCC.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so the next 6 months is spent, talking with individuals, so upholsterers, home furnishing professionals, and getting them confident with using the app, but also trying to get the attention of designer fabric companies, finishes, trim, anything home furnishing, so that we can populate the internal libraries so that people don't have to exit out of Renewable, that they can just have the options within there and to see those photorealistic images. And at one point I am going to conference in September here in the US and then another conference in the UK.
Awesome. And you're headed to Harvard.
On Sunday.
Because you're not busy enough creating two businesses. Yes. You're going to Harvard. And why are you going to Harvard?
So they are offering a course on neuromarketing. And my background, so I actually went to Iowa State University. And yes. And so I originally had graduated with a degree in psychology and criminal justice and anthropology in a trajectory to go into law enforcement. And after an injury, I pivoted into this skilled trade, but I still do love understanding people and helping people. And so I'm now, rewinding, and I'm applying that love of psychology into, creating solutions and supporting artisans. And the course in neuromarketing came up. And my thought process behind that is that Renewable does not have a lot of data behind it because it is a newer innovation, but the whole field of neuromarketing has lots of studies. And so just going to learn that and understanding why people buy what they buy would really help me understand what we're doing and really support the app and its users better.
Well, congratulations. And I can't wait to hear about the course. Teach me everything you learned, because I'd love to know that. Is there anything else you want the audience to know about your product, your showroom? If someone is really interested in repurposed furniture, you've got the showroom, they can make an appointment and they can come by and at least get inspired.
Yes. So I will say, we're not anti-new furniture. We also offer new quality frames. And, when I tell that to people, they're like, well, why if you love vintage and antique? I do, but we also want job security. So we have to still make good quality, furniture that will be around in 30, 50, 100 years for us to work on and the next generation of upholsterers. So we work on everything from the 1800s to modern builds from scratch, and it can be something that you already own, or it can be something that you find in our catalogs and that we can make for you. We build banquettes and custom seating for people, window treatments, pillows, really anything home furnishing that involves fabric. We can work with people, whether you're a business owner or a homeowner, we can work with you on that.
And I would also encourage the audience, if you've got kids that are looking for a career path, I can't think of anything more satisfying than what you do.
We really, we want that visibility so that people of the next generation can see that this is a viable career path. And I am a huge advocate because I am autistic and AuDHD, and so is my daughter. And so I just want people to know that neurodiverse people actually really thrive in this creative industry because there are systems and that gives comfort, but there's also variety in the types of furniture that we're working on. And when people create neuro-inclusive work environments, that means that there is flexibility and accommodations that can be made for people.
I love that. Well, congratulations on your success. And I can't wait to see what happens in the next 5-10 years with Renewable.
Thank you.
I am super excited for you, and I hope you come back and give us a progress update.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Made in Iowa. Subscribe, like, and share wherever you listen. Catch episodes weekly from the Iowa Everywhere studio on the BPC streaming network.